Hello, fellow humans. How are you this day? You're hanging out on episode number 34 of Aperture Birds podcast with the University of New Mexico's Esports program advisor, the wise Mr.Bernardo Gallegos. An inspirational conversation on the world of collegiate esports, which encompasses a modern movement in colleges around the globe to build, support, and train their best students in PC and console gaming sports. It's already a multi-billion-dollar industry, but cutting-edge pros start young, and some of the best come from these types of programs. Bernardo and I talk about the state of esports in New Mexico and the world, as well as try to explain esports as a whole. Find everything you need to know, including how to try out for UNM's soon-to-be official esports varsity program at https://esports.unm.edu. Then you can also find these guys on social media at their Facebook at UNM Esports, Instagram at UNM Esports, and Twitter at UNM Esports. You can support this podcast to help me continue my quest to bring you inspiration, knowledge, and wellness at patreon.com/APOB media. And of course, our site, aperturebirds.com, is where you can find anything APOB. Thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate the support and would love to hear your opinions on iTunes reviews. All right, boom, we got it. Enjoy this one, people, and keep pursuing greatness.
Hey, we got Bernardo on Aperture Birds podcast. How you doing, brother?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. How's it going?
It's going. Finally made our way into the United Nations here. We're at the center of it, of the hurricane.
Yeah, the collegiate United Nations was going on here before us, so we were severely underdressed, but
right, exactly. No, we found ourselves a spot. The way we do these podcasts typically is we'll find a nice quiet location, or attempt to, and Bernardo was kind enough to find us someplace on the UNM campus. What is this building called?
This is the Student Union building. So we're in the sub now.
Okay.
We're hanging out in this letter room up here on the third floor, and it's like guerrilla podcast, man. We're like just jumping in wherever, and that's cool.
Yeah, we're hooked into a room. We had to ask the dude at the front desk. We're like, hey, you got a room free? He's like, well, United Nations. What is it? I guess debate groups.
Student UN or like UN, collegiate UN. Yeah,
they're finishing up shortly. Go ahead and find a room.
So
here we are. So we're talking about UNM's new esports program, and then in the greater picture, we're also talking about esports as a whole.
Yeah.
And then we can even whittle down to how the hell you got into this. So talk to me, man. What one of the first questions I want to answer, because I feel like even I had some questions, because I feel like I want to say, as a very amateur gamer, have gamed many years of my life, I thought I knew what esports means, but the gravity of saying that term now has grown so much to the point where here we are. So what is esports?
So esports is essentially the amalgamation of what you think it is. It's electronic sports, so that if we wanted to whittle it down to just that super distilled level, but it encompasses all video games that can be played competitively.
Okay.
Humans by nature, we're competitive. So when you're talking like, the original Olympics, I mean, what was the first thing? It was a foot race. Like, I bet you I can beat you from here to there.
Right. Marathon, right?
Exactly.
Right,
yeah.
Okay,
and then wrestling and like things like that. Like, it was just literally what you had, and that was it.
Right.
And now that, we find these competitions have grown immensely throughout time and through traditional sports, martial arts, you name it. Things
Football,
that were
soccer,
just
traditional stuff. Sure.
It came up as just like a baseball. They had humble roots in like, playing in the cornfields and saying, hey, I bet my team from this county can beat your team from that county. They had pennants and all that. Right. It's always about how can I be the best at this thing that we have points in a scoring system in.
Right. That's human nature, like you said.
Exactly. Yeah, and so it led us to this. Video games have been around since, the 70s, I believe. And then even before, possibly, it was on oscilloscopes in like laboratories when they originally made the first video game.
It was MIT with Pong. Do I have that right?
It was one of the other, because there was like an oscilloscope game, and then Pong came shortly after. Okay. Atari, so on and so forth. We don't need to go deep into like a history of video games, but
30,000 of you.
Yeah. Atari was the first actual group who had a competition where they had a tournament playing, I believe it was either Centipede or Galaga.
Wow.
Where they actually set up cabinets in a big giant like ballroom and like had a throwdown where people showed up and tried to go for high scores. So
had these giant car-sized computers to
and
run.
It's not and it's those big coin-op cabinets they used to have, or on the tabletops too. But it's not new. So esports is now directed at high-level AAA titles that are being played. So like the Call of Duties, the Halos started off with a lot of the console gaming, but PC started doing Quake, way back in the day. So there was PCs being played, and they used to have tens of thousands of people show up to QuakeCon in Texas and throw down there. And it was what's called a BYOC, bring your own computer or bring your own console. And so, yeah, it was LANs. These were LAN competitions where people would show up and throw it out to see who was the best.
This predates a lot of like because I feel like consoles really sold video games to Americans across the board. I mean, you were kind of in, either you kind of lightly played when there was still arcades, right?
Yeah,
back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
But there, and then once computers took hold to the point where they could handle that graphical level, like early 90s, I think we're
talking, because like you said, we had the first gen, or I call the first console wars, like when we had Nintendo and Sega,
Atari,
where it was like, Atari, Commodore, and all those, and ColecoVision. But then we grew into like, again, that Sega Nintendo rift, and then after that we had N64 and Dreamcast and all these other stronger things. Like you said, graphically things grow, the computing power gets stronger, and then we end up at people playing PC again. Quake, Counter-Strike Source was another game. Counter-Strike's still a big name in esports.
Yes.
To this day, they all got stuck on a specific iteration of Counter-Strike. I think it was 1.6. I could be wrong. So sorry, Counter-Strike guys. But that was played for years up until even CSGO came out competitively. And then, of
CSGO.
course, Counter-Strike Global Offensive.
Okay. And
again,
I'm going to have to do that quite a bit because I'm not as savvy as I want to be.
And like we were saying, like now what it came to was consoles kind of changed the multiplayer level where you could just hop on, jump in a lobby, and play somebody instead of having to go through server lists and find where you wanted to play and find your buds or find people you knew. And then, of course, now PC is becoming relevant again. Graphical, like I want it to play well, but I want it to look good too.
Right.
So everybody's like, why not have it both? So now we have that kind of like performance meets enthusiast level of PC builders, or you can go buy stuff like Omen or Alienware or Zydax.
Some pre-built
iBuyPower. Yeah, pre-built stuff off the internet. So that's very
accessible, I guess.
Accessible, yeah. So again, esports has evolved like all the way from the coin-op level through those older iterations in PC into console again, where we had like the Halo online stuff, Major League Gaming, game battles where you could actually play and set up tournaments online.
So being that PC took off before, you had arcades where that was probably when the, like you said, kind of more or less the original esports stuff. And then you had PCs that picked up. And even now, most hardcore gamers are going to say PCs are the master race, doing air quotes. I know you guys can't see, but because that is where it had gotten so do you think from the time that started, was that where esports probably got rolling in terms of like what the early start was of that?
In time for modern esports, if I had to pick a time when it like became what it is today, I would say it happened probably just between the Counter-Strike handoff to Counter-Strike Global Offensive, which was also met with the console kind of getting into the Xbox One, PlayStation 3 and 4 era. And then that's where it kind of overlapped into the whole, like it's not just one or the other, because again, console gaming took off in ways that helped to, again, just get you in the game faster.
Right. You had accessibility. I mean, people that didn't know what the hell to do with a computer, how to build one or even afford one, you could buy a console for $200-$300.
Right.
And then you set that down and you're ready to go.
Exactly.
And all your buddies have been playing Quake for years and years. You're like, you know what, bro? Check this out. I got my PlayStation.
I can get in on the game too, even though it was like, so it dropped a couple of gates where those people who weren't enthusiasts or building their own machines or have those means, you grab that console, because what they'll argue is like, again, like you said, PC Master Race, console, whatever. What's funny is that the guts inside of your Xbox and your PlayStation, at least until recent years, was all AMD graphics processing.
Okay.
So it didn't even matter. You were just buying AMD graphics processing covered by whatever name.
You were essentially picking a team.
Yeah, you were picking a team. And then PC, again, like you had the enthusiast gate that could be thrown, because you can play optimally or you can play
at the highest level.
$3,500 for a rig from the ground up, which is silly to me.
Pentium 2 with 500 megabytes. What's up? That was what I had. 90 something. I was the hottest dude on the block on my 533 megahertz processor.
I would say that's when we would see what we could say though is like once CS transferred into this modern Counter-Strike Global Offensive, overlapped with like Halo 3, Modern Warfare 2 era, modern esports kind of took off. Major League Gaming really was like the group that helped to bring it to that fruition, where now we have ESL. We used to have the World Cyber Games before that, which was mostly PC, and the whole world was in front of us. They had LANs that were more prevalent like on the coast, but outside of the US, LAN cafes were normal because high-speed internet was so hard to get.
Let's say let's talk about what's a LAN cafe to a layman.
Oh yeah, so you're talking local area network. So it's me me and you and several other buddies in one location,
physically
connected with cables.
Right.
And the cafe is the business. They buy the internet and then they rent out space to us. So there's actually one here in Albuquerque, Golden Gun Gaming, and then they also have Raid Night up in Montgomery and like the Heights area.
Right.
So
shout out to Golden Gun. My brother's been there, been playing a lot, and it's a good safe place for kids to go. It's a good place for you to make friends, camaraderie, and do something that's not illegal with your time.
But that's exactly the kind of places that they had around the world as America kind of fell into like esports again, because we wanted to be competitive too.
Sure.
And for the longest time with competitive esports, we were kind of like, oh, North America, that was kind of like, oh, well, that's cool, they're here. Right. But like it was like South Korea and Europe and people just dominating this market.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that later, but those guys have like holidays for playing games and stuff like that. And so we were essentially late in the game is what you're kind of thinking.
We're a little bit late, but we are starting to prove ourselves. We're starting to see that, of course, in true like North American and American fashion, like we have things that are like the number of entrepreneurial minds that come out of our country just have those ideas and that they build upon, and it makes it easier for people to get access to those things. Like I said, the accessibility to high-speed internet really is what changed how quickly and how slowly at the same time we got into like that level of gameplay.
My first foray into this is little Hutchinson, Kansas. Shout out to Hutchinson. It's this tiny town, and I had nothing to do. Stand there with my aunt and go across the street to the LAN cafe there, and I got to step into a PS2. Yeah. And Dreamcast was the first console that had a modem inside of it. But the problem with Sega, who made Dreamcast at the time, is that they had nothing in they had no I guess end sight, nothing in sight at the end of the tunnel. Like, how the hell do we support this thing and build up drive for it? So that kind of fell off. Nobody used the Dreamcast online. Very few people did.
Yeah, and I believe Sega got absorbed by Nintendo at some point as well.
Yeah, well, their hardware division, sure. Right. So the PS2, when that came out, you eventually had this attachment that would allow you to get online. Yep. And this is when, like you said, the advent of broadband internet, which bumpy little towns like Hutchinson, Kansas, they would have been one of the ones that it was pretty rare that you could get that speed to be able to even play online. Right. And I remember sitting down and renting the box for, I think it was like $10 for an hour or something like that. And I was playing SOCOM online.
Oh, there you
dudes all over the world.
That's pre Call of Duty for you guys out there. If you've never played SOCOM, guys, and if you're new, if you're playing Call of Duty like 4 and that's your first game, SOCOM was like the Call of Duty before Call of Duty.
4 dudes and you're just wrecking. But you were wrecking NPCs, right? Like
I don't remember exactly. I was in the Halo realm, and I was on the Sony side too much, but I know SOCOM was definitely bringing the heat, because that was before Killzone came out too, and that was a big thing for PlayStation as well.
Oh yeah, Killzone was huge. Oh, yeah. So we're talking early 2000s. So we start jumping on the bandwagon. So at this time, esports, is there money on the line? Is there tournaments? Is there things like that? I mean, I realize this is before the advent of social media,
right?
So of course we wouldn't have all known about it, and therefore participation would have been down to the level it is now. But were they doing shit like that?
They were, and that's the thing, is like, even if it wasn't like an actual big thing like QuakeCon where those PC players got together, console gaming had local things going on. Hastings still existed. There was tournaments going on, and people were doing tournament organization in places that were just smaller. I remember when Halo 2 was coming out, Halo 1 was the thing to play, and everybody, let's put it this way, they borrowed network switches from schools, so that way like 4 Xboxes get connected in somebody's living room, and then you would throw TVs down,
and you connect,
and that was it. And that was how you were like, who's the best, hang 'em high, Blood Gulch, like who's the best Master Chief out there, right? So that was when it really, like, you could see people were going out of their way to have competitions, even if it was just a little homebrew thing. There was tournaments at Hastings that would pay out certain things. It was usually a prize, a game, or something. When I went to New Mexico Tech in 2006, even they were having dorm competitions, and it was just our own thing. This was before Blizzard's Hero of the Dorms, I believe. Okay. And Blizzard got big into the bandwagon. They were the first ones, I believe, in the college scene. So shout out to Blizzard for being the pioneers that they always are. But yeah, we would hook up into the LAN at the switch, on the plate in your dorm room or in people's dorm rooms, and just have massive throwdowns, as many as we could fit onto like a little, because it was already set up. It was in the walls. And but again, it was happening on those levels, but on the coasts, it was happening in larger levels. Like I said, Major League Gaming, and game battles were really kind of pushing, like, where people could play online, and then they could get invited to tournaments and physical tournaments. There was Final Boss and Triggers Down and a bunch of other teams that were like the advent of Halo professionals. And then like I think shortly thereafter, they started putting people like Walshy and a couple other T-Squared onto like Mountain Dews and Dr. Peppers.
Wow.
And so they're holding like Xbox 360 controllers, you know,
right.
And like they were on a soda. And so that was like the
mainstreaming of it.
Like, yeah, maybe like now there's sponsors involved. Now people are looking at it. And then of course, it's gone just to new heights till today.
Bonkers. Absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. Let's put it this way. It went from that being small, kind of like, let's do our thing kind of areas. Overwatch League, which is now one game's own league, which is a Blizzard game.
Sure.
It started at a $20 million franchise buy-in. I believe it's now at $60 million for a franchise buy-in.
That's insane.
And that's within a couple of years.
So in we're going to, just for you guys listening, it's going to tangent all over this conversation because there's no way, I mean, if we covered this chronologically, it'd be a snooze fiesta. So we're going to kind of jump around, but how many New Mexico schools participate in the way that, so let's talk about this. So UNM, which is where now you are employed, and then you're also an advisor for the esports team for UNM. And this is, culmination of all the things we just talked about. And then even in New Mexico, that's saying something to say that we have an official esports team for UNM.
Well, we're a official student organization right now for UNM at this point in time. We are pivoting to make those moves. We built the student organization to be absorbed by UNM proper. Okay. So we, from the day one, when we made the decision to name ourselves UNM Esports Club, we're talking literally they're going to have to drop club. They bring us in and we're already hitting the ground running.
So you're just trying to make the framework and say this is
right. We're putting it together. And even as we make this podcast, we're already having conversations with higher ups, like to make it really legit. So
dude's down there, Nardo's down there pitching to the guy at the front desk. He's like, hey,
check out UNM Esports, bro. Do you play some video games? And guess what? Dude plays like Rocket League, and we have a varsity team for Rocket League out there competing.
Okay. So this bridges me to my question. Yeah. So how many schools in New Mexico thus far are participating at the student organization level, or are there any that are participating at a level where they're recruiting and running it like they would another traditional, athletic division of the school?
So as far as like the school goes, we are the collegiate esports group on campus.
Really? So New Mexico Tech, none of those guys.
New Mexico Tech has. Okay, sorry. So let me get back up because now I've misread or heard the question. So between us, NMSU has a legitimate one. They're actually a few semesters ahead of us. Okay. They're actually tied in properly through athletics as an activity. Wow. So they're recognized in the same purview as cheerleading. So, but they're autonomous. So, because nobody in traditional sports understands this, and they realize at NMSU that they don't want to get in the way of the natural progression because they want it to be successful. Okay. So, letting the gamers handle it, what they know, what they're into, and getting out of our way, so to speak, has led to a lot of success at NMSU.
It's like how Netflix knows to not, mess with their, comedians and stuff like that. Like this is a whole new generational thing, I think, because they're just letting them do their thing, and you're gonna have, you're gonna have the people that know what they're doing instead of have some geezer that generational gap is huge, and he's like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to set these rules up, deal with it. Right. So that's awesome. So are you getting the same treatment here, or like autonomous?
We're aiming for it. Okay. There's a little sensitivity to athletics here at UNM. A lot of people who are here in the local New Mexico area will know how the news is looking. But what we're trying to do is put a very positive spotlight on what the next generation of competitive student looks like. Okay. And so again, that's what our goal is. We want to make sure academia is at the forefront, philanthropy is up front. We want to learn how to give back and get these guys into good morals and values where they can, like, hey, if you're playing video games, you're honestly already a part of the haves. Right. So you got to be able to figure out how to do something nice every once in a while.
Or there's an opportunity here.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
And so Highlands, I heard recently, Highlands University is getting in on it. I believe West Las Vegas, I believe it's West Las Vegas. I'm trying to remember who's up there now. Sure. So the guys up north in Las Vegas, they're also doing some esports stuff. New Mexico Tech has a team for one particular game. I think it's League of Legends. I'm not sure if they have more, but they're developing. My goal is, it sounds like it's starting to be the two big Marvel tops where the major rivalry was UNM and NMSU. Okay. So NMSU had it. I went down, learned a little bit about their program, and I was living in Albuquerque, like you said, coming into UNM, and I was like, I'm going to stand it up here. I need to find out how. And then weeks later, Steven, the president actually of the student organization now, Steven he reaches out to me through Matt, who was the previous lead director of esports at NMSU, and he's like, hey, I heard you're going to be the guy for esports at UNM. And I'm like, well, it's not up yet, but we are now the guys for esports at UNM. And then I found Dieter, who also he's a senior here. Okay. Steven transferred in as a sophomore, and he is fantastic. He's a business major and brilliantly minded. This kid is, every time I turn around, I'm fully impressed. I've told these guys multiple times over the last few weeks now too. I am just floored. Their drive is real, and that's why I think it belongs in the hands of the gamers.
Sure.
Because if I would have had an opportunity when we were coming out of high school to have pursued this as like a pro gamer and had somewhere to go,
right,
this is the path I wish I could have followed.
Sure.
And so, but I'm just,
or had people like you guiding that.
Right. And I'm just, that's my role now, dude. I'm 30. We're getting a little older. And so I'm like, I might not be able to game as hard. I can
Why you
still
gotta date
hang.
us like that, Doug?
I can, hey, you know, I can hang, man. Like, and it's funny because I go into back and forth with the friend group still, and they're like, oh yeah, you're not going to play anymore. I'm like, dude, it takes me like a few hours of playing a game to start stomping people's faces. Right. Like I'm kind of like I call myself like a copy ninja, kind of like, was it Kakashi from Naruto? Like, you just let me look at it for long enough and I'm going to start picking up the strat. Like, it's not hard.
It's muscle memory.
It is.
Reflexes.
So, but again, it's not about that. It's these guys, Steven and Dieter, who have like, they came to me. I found Dieter. He was a previous hand inside of doing the League of Legends stuff a few years ago, and he's also had club experience. So they both bring great things to the table. We pre-chartered within weeks of talking. Like within a week of talking, we had all the paperwork done, and then we just kept going from there, man. So like I said, so as we develop our own group, we're trying to build it up, and we're very open source amongst the colleges right now. So all these esports groups want to see other esports groups be successful.
So there's a lot of camaraderie there,
right? Okay. So we want to be successful across the board, so that way these administrations understand this is the demographic coming in, and for years to come and forever.
Right.
The demographic doesn't end at college age. Right. There's people who have been playing games most of their lives. There's an 86-year-old lady who plays Animal Crossing, every single day,
killing it.
And yeah, there's news articles coming out almost daily about how it has benefits for hand-eye coordination.
Sure, doctors with surgery. I know that's a big thing because they talk about that.
Exactly. Kids who end up in treatment at like children's hospitals can have something to do when they have bed rest and they can't get out of bed. Sure. Gaming is just easy to like, hey, put a controller in their hands.
Yeah.
Gives them a little bit of escapism.
And then with the advent of VR and AR, you're getting to the point where now it's total immersion. And if you have somebody, like you said, that's bedridden or something like that, that's huge, because then you have the ability to still work motor functions to some respect, in some degree or whatever. So and then my next question was basically going to be like, how do we rank? But I guess we're not quite to that point.
We're not to that point just yet. We're doing okay. We played Boise State on Martin Luther King Day, and we took them down in a series for best of 3 in League of Legends. But I think it was their orange team. Our varsity team got to play with them. It was a good swing from behind. We got the first game down, won it after having a bad first half of the game. League of Legends, as people know how games go, we had to wait till mid game to really get that swing back into full effect. And the second game, we gave up first blood, but what is really the worth of first blood in a game if you can't finish out or close?
So I want to, I don't want to get way into the weeds, because I know this can become geeked out hard, but real quickly explain what League of Legends is compared to like FPS, which is a first person shooter like Halo, where you're just blasting points for kills. And,
right.
Capture the flag. So League of Legends, what is the premise? And then I guess, like, how do you play that essentially? I mean, I could explain it my way, but I honestly don't think I've ever played League of Legends.
So League of Legends is what's called a MOBA, multiplayer online battle arena.
Okay.
It's 5v5, and the way it's broken down is that there's several different parts of the map. The meta is so hard and just driven into the game about how you were successful at a high level. So you
meta being strategy.
Okay. Meta, yeah. So meta being like the given strategy that is now accepted as like, you do this or you're not going to win.
Right. Okay.
And so there's top lane, middle lane, bottom lane. And then there's an area in between all that on a square grid where there's jungle areas that can't be seen. So you have the 5 people. There's usually 2 in the bottom lane, which is your ADC and your support characters, building up just like really quick to like kill these little enemies that come in waves. Sure. And it's just basically like, it's a base attack. You have to get through towers on either side to your enemy's base, take down their base, and then whoever takes down the other person's base first wins. Wow. But you're doing that while simultaneously pressing the other team, where it's just like, okay, now we got to go stop this guy from getting our little minions. Now we got to go stop this person from trying to take down this dragon that gives us a huge buff. So it's a lot longer drawn than FPS. It's very long, but there's
it's not instant gratification like you're getting with FPS kind of stuff.
It can be kind of like really intense at different points, but like the mid game and then the late game gets really exciting when you have teams running around and just their big pack of 5 at that point where everybody's all buffed out and has all their items.
Well, I mean, this thing turns out arenas to have people watching these guys do this. So I mean, there's a huge fan fan aspect to it, which I think is really what's driven the sport, because you're not going to have people, you're not going to have vendors give any shits at all unless you have people coming to spend money and or show up or, at least get the brands in front of them, commercials, so on and so forth. So
yeah, just as like you said, to talk about like even some numbers, League of Legends Worlds last year took place in China. That's where it was actually the competition was held. China had a team that actually made it quite far, and the highest level of concurrent viewership for Worlds this year was over 200 million viewers. Damn. It was almost like 220, but without the Chinese viewership, it was like 12 million. So the fact that we're breaking into those scenes where like China's now getting into the gaming industry.
These are bigger than State of the Union addresses. These are bigger than Super Bowl. This is bigger than
Super Bowl, not just yet. So I'll give NFL their credit where it's due. But the Major League Baseball's Game 7 a few years back, I think it was 2015 or 2016. I think it was 2015. But the viewership was beaten by the viewership for Worlds and like other like
That's
championship
huge.
things for esports. And
so
then
that goes to show you the gravity of what those games really pull. So League of Legends is one I've just seen it quite a bit, and that's why I want to ask about it. So in terms of that game, that's what you guys were playing on MLK Day.
That's what we played on MLK Day. Yeah, when we played against Boise State University, the Mountain West Conference is actually getting involved. So now we're talking 12 major D1 schools that exist in the Mountain West Conference. I say that, and some people who follow other sports, football and basketball, will know exactly what I'm talking about. They're actually going to start up their own league now, and we're going to be competing in that for Rocket League and League, I believe, starting this year, League of Legends. And so, so it's happening left and right, and it's not just like one place or the other. We have several different organizations that like do collegiate stuff too. So.
Yeah, so I'd seen one of them was the NACE, NACE. I think that was
North American Collegiate Esports Association.
Sure, okay, and that's the one that like you don't really need. There's not a super huge amount of prerequisites. That's just kind of like now you're on that circuit, right? Like you're kind of on that competing against people in that.
They're the governing body, so they're actually trying to move themselves and position themselves into more of like that NCAA seat.
Damn,
because,
so that's okay.
Because
that's
again, gamers understand gamers, and not to say that that traditional sports and athletes don't, because the majority of people who play and actually get real money behind these pro esports organizations are like the 76ers. Like several different team members have money like in different professional esports groups, because they're like, oh, well, I'm backing these guys, they're backing those guys. I see. And then there's other big names out there as well. You can take a look. There's some really big names that are now showing up to professional esports. And then the NACE though understands that the NCAA has been doing some things with athletes that not a lot of people agree with.
Okay.
That's probably
Give me an example. What do you mean?
Well, just like how student athletes are treated.
Okay.
So like, there's been things in the news, and I can get into details, but I'll probably save it. I'll let people kind of go look into it.
Could I be wrong in saying that like if somebody got paid by doing some gig, then they can throw them out of the, because you're not supposed to get paid, right, or something like that?
Well, when you're a collegiate athlete, you can't take in income as a college student, student athlete.
But there's some college female,
you can be featured in the I think it's called like it was the NCAA games, the video games. You can be featured as a player in a video game, but they can use your likeness and name and make money, but you wouldn't see revenue. So there were some things out there that the NACE, I think, is trying to kind of be cognizant of.
Be modern.
And a lot of gamers, and a lot of us who are building it up, are very aware of that. We don't want these kids taken advantage of.
Sure.
We don't think that's fair. And
in the same breath, let's say that you guys got set up with UNM, you guys were official.
Right.
Would if they had a rule against getting paid, would that supersede NACE?
So what it is that actually what we're doing is as the students are here, it would be done in scholarship winnings.
Oh, wow.
So when you play in collegiate stuff, you're not playing for pay, you're paying for scholarship winnings, which then can be dispersed to the students.
Take it? Yeah.
And the scholarships, honestly, once you get through the thick of it and the legalese, they can be given to students I can, as a student, if I wanted to go apply for scholarships for whatever, I can go get like $1,000 for just, being Hispanic and then being in IT. And but they're like, you can use it for what? They can say, oh, you can use it for anything, whatever you want.
Okay. So there's not you need to do these things to spend it or whatever.
Right. No, but again, while they're in school, the academia is the number one thing. We want to make sure that they're comfortable, that they're doing well in school, they've got good grades. We're going to start opening up channels with on-campus tutoring groups to see what they would think about maybe joining us in Discord, which Discord is like the major chat venue server now and server and service that has been out there for gamers for a few years. It has blown up. It's like the gamer Slack. If anybody knows what Slack is, or Microsoft Teams, Discord is that. Skype for business, things like that. So yeah, that's what Discord is for gamers. And if we can open up those channels where we can have some tutoring. So it's like, hey man, like, you know what? I know how Discord works. Let's get these tutors kind of up on it, and they can live chat and video chat and share desktop and screens with like students like live, because if they're going to do some gaming and they're at their machine, well, hey, you got a few minutes to like work on that homework problem you need some help with, or you need someone with this, assignment or whatever, like that's bringing them to like, again, bringing the resources together. So we want to help bridge those gaps and make it more modernized and make it really easy for them to get to those resources.
I saw something, it was a YouTube video I'd watched, just trying to kind of, immerse myself in some of this stuff. And it was essentially how to get a scholarship for esports. It was like a step-by-step, and they were hitting up Utah State. It was one of the Pac-12, like you talked about.
Yeah.
And it was one of their senior guys that, the YouTube channel narrator was trying to say, so this is the guy, and the guy starts talking.
Yeah.
So one of his things is he said that GPA is real big.
Yep.
He said that's typically what it is, but what you get out of said scholarship sometimes depends. Sometimes they're paying, like you said, money out the nose just to give you money.
Right.
Sometimes it's, well, yes, but you need a GPA, or and some of them are nice enough to where they'll give you all of the books, but they'll also give you housing, things like that.
Right.
But then they talked about how, then it was like, well, how would I apply? Because this is such a modern thing. It's not like a typical process where you like write an essay, or like you said, being, IT, Hispanic, or whatever, some minority, whatever the deal is. So they talked about a VOD of the gameplay, a video.
Yep.
Right. So in terms of what you guys are planning on for this system, how would you recruit a player? That brings me kind of my next question.
So yeah, as we are doing kind of this exercise in organizational building, right, if you will, we, like I said, we've set up the student organization to be fully absorbed as an official branch or part of UNM. Now we've been talking about recently about building the org chart, like, playing just in our minds out, like, okay, if we live in this world where we have a budget and we can recruit and things like that, and we'll have scholarship budgets.
Bro. It'll come.
Right. It's exactly. If it doesn't, then there's just bad decision making coming from other places. But
it'll happen.
But so again, like it'll be very much like how traditional sports is done. We'll have some scouting and recruiting. What's beautiful about esports, though, is literally all your stats are online. Right. So we don't necessarily have to go see anybody. We can just go look at your stats for each game and look it up and do that pretty relatively with ease.
And
we're saving on the travel costs and things. Right. VODs can be uploaded to YouTube. We can request
But a VOD is a video. I don't know what it stands for.
I don't remember what VOD stands for either myself. Let's look it up real quick.
It's like a recording of a person's gamemanship. So it'd be
video
like
on demand. But like,
okay,
but it's just like saying like, I just need it now kind of thing. Like Twitch, when streamers play on Twitch, when gamers play on Twitch, it's live, but then at the end it can curate automatically to several different places, or they can save that and then send it to YouTube. But yeah,
or to Scout, which would be what we're kind of getting to. Okay.
And what we would probably do eventually is we'd probably see like an upload section on our website or something to that effect. Or we would just say, hey, yeah, tag us in it. If you want us to take a look at something, tag us at whatever, hashtag this. So that way when our social media and outreach guys are looking through hashtags and filtering, we can just use those kind of tools that are
like, damn, look at this dude.
Modernizing. Yeah. So
got you.
Hashtag recruit or UNM recruits, and then boom, like, or hashtag UNM Esports.
What a job, dude, to just sit around and like look at dudes playing video games and be like,
somebody does it out there. Like you said, there are institutions that have scholarships.
Already
so
at
they
that
have
level,
to actually start doing that and being very careful with who they pick up. Not just careful, but like they're now looking for good players. So.
Right. So you've recruited. Let's say scholarships or not. We got this team together.
Yeah.
So I was kind of interested in how they talked about. Well, and you just kind of said it, the org chart. So if you had what would be the typical size for like, what do you think the ideal size would be for a team that you guys would have?
So
or
teams,
roster,
right. So rosters and teams are dictated by the game themselves.
Okay.
So for example, like your full team for Overwatch is 6 players. You would need an alternate. And then actually in the professional leagues that are out there, League of Legends has 5 and 5 alternates. So you can have up to 10 players on your team. So that way, if you really wanted to mix it up, it really builds a strategy around having how you have your team building, who plays what role, and then like if you really want to mix it up, like if they're strong with certain champions or certain things. There is what's cool about competitive esports is a lot of the different ones that are out there. Call of Duty that I know of for sure. League of Legends, I know of for sure. I can talk on and say there's a pick and ban system. So like when you're playing at the high end level, you can ban certain like characters, or you can ban like a weapon attachment. Like somebody like their high level player always like gets really good kills with this character, or they get a lot of points with this attachment. Boom, you can just ban it. If you get first pick, that's really strong in how strategy dictates like how some of the outcomes.
So
of the games.
homie can't use an axe, and maybe that was what he's trained all his hours
he always
on.
uses flashbangs, so I'm going to ban flashbangs. Like if we get first pick, I'm just going to ban flashbangs straight out.
So then they may sub out because they needed the guy that.
Well, no, subs will be in at that point, but they're it's playing the strategy against the player. So there is still very much like doing the research, like those VODs and things. Like going and looking at their plays, looking at their actual
Damn, so
ones.
this is like football teams. Like if we
there's
were looking at another
tons of
football
level
team's
research.
plays, then you'd be watching the plays for the League of Legends for, let's say, NMSU and saying, hey, we know that, Bernardo is able to, smash with the axe. Let's ban that right off the bat.
Well, and just thinking back to it as well, when you were saying VODs earlier, I think that in where I was missing too is that on the game, League of Legends, like a lot of different games will actually have history that you can watch of certain gamer tags. So I can go look you up and then look how your
Don't
game
look mine
went.
up. It's bad, bro.
No, I know. But like it was kind of like Halo when they did the heat maps back in the day where you can look up another player in Halo and see where they do well on the map, like or how the game went. Like you can see where every spawn and frag was, like, oh, this person didn't get fragged for like, a third of the game. He lived, but he got like 13, frags himself on the other team. Boom. And now his points are like, he's like the KD is unreal. So
what an interesting thing to think of
down.
How the strategy goes for esports, man.
These guys are busy. Like I said, when they're not, hitting the books and doing the other things too, the level of dedication is real. So it's very much like, I hate to use the word legitimizing, but it's really showing that anything that's, got initial talent can be honed as a craft and honed into an art.
Sure.
And the person who's practicing that should definitely get a little bit of like respect out of a little bit more people out there, because just because it's not the thing we chose as society to say is like, oh, this is great.
Right.
You wouldn't call, the Troy Aikmans and like the Drew Breeses and like, the Tom Brady's or Michael Jordans, you wouldn't call them like football addicts and basketball addicts. You just call them the greatest,
right?
Or one of the greats.
Well, and then I was, and again, I was watching all this stuff and I thought it was very interesting because they were comparing how modern teams, there's a cat that, and I wouldn't know his name if you paid me to know his name. I believe he's a South Korean team, and he was League of Legends, I think, but he was like one of the main cats. He's been all over. He's lots of promotions and stuff like that. And he was talking in a lot of, open forums, and he said, they were asking him, how are you guys so good? And I think it speaks to this thing that Michael Jordan, Troy Aikman, all these guys actually, as much as it's misleading to say that, oh, they're the best at this thing, they practiced. That was the thing. And that's what this guy had said. It was in Korean, so he didn't say it directly, but through the translator, he basically said, they kept asking me, he said, the thing that sets me apart from the next team and my whole team is we practice more than anybody. I can guarantee you that. And it was something like, I think it was, they talked about studies, blah, blah, blah. And eventually it got to this number that they kept settling on. They need at least 10,000 hours under your belt doing XYZ in order for you to be considered an Aikman or a Jordan, and Michael Jordan himself was he wasn't at the outset this badass player. He was not this amazing, basketball player. Even I think it was college or freshman year of college. Yeah. He was not the best of the best, but he kept drilling harder because he wasn't the best, and do you feel in esports and even in these games that putting in that type of work is what sets, the champs, aside from a guy like me? I mean, because I feel like I couldn't pick the controller up and just be, some savant at it, right? But
like there's prodigies out there. Like there are like people who just pick something up and it's like they are they're a virtuoso somehow. Sure. But like you said, it is hard work and effort. I felt like I was pretty good in my friends group when I was growing up playing Halo 2, but it was because I played with like 3 different groups.
It's
like
closed group.
And that was, and people were like, oh, you play with us? Like, yeah, but I play with you. I play with the skater kids and I play with like all these jocks over here. And I've been playing Halo all around these different places and I'm putting in the work. And like I was playing custom games, just learning how to jump around the map by myself. Right. I was learning how to bounce grenades off of weird walls and stuff. And then when people go like, how every time, it's like, oh yeah, I learned how to do this weird throw. I can do it blind, like, and then know where my grenade's going to land. Like, and
play with it behind your back. How are you doing it?
It was just, and that's it. It's time. And like you said, I think it's the effort. Yes. And it's very much the dedication to it. There's a lot of good resources out there now, again, with the internet age and of course apps and things like that. There are like tons of ways for kids to warm up. Overwatch players play a game called Osu sometimes to warm up. And it's literally a mouse point and click rhythm game.
Oh, wow.
With like a lot of like EDM tracks and like Japanese, like, anime tracks and stuff, but it's literally just point and click and drag your mouse. But those FPS players with a mouse, what do you think is going to be a good warm up?
They can do that spinning shoot thing where they jump off a building and spin and get a headshot a mile away. You're like, what are you doing,
but it all comes with dedication to your craft, and that's where it stands. Like he's absolutely right. I just had a discussion with my girlfriend about like, the time it's put in. Like you would think that if you're going to do a job, you're working 40 hours a week standard for a full-time position. Sure. Well, just because you're working a full-time position for 40 hours a week, that means you're doing work and you're at a job and you're in a career path maybe, but how much more time do you have to put into that to become, like you said, the best?
Right.
So 80 hours a week, 90 hours a week.
Right.
What does that then actually translate into? And what else happens?
Well, and that speaks to why cats that we all want to be like, oh, he's a fat cat CEO sitting at the top, but those dudes work 90-hour weeks. They work.
Oh, they live it.
They don't go home. I mean, they're in that suit and tie 24
If you haven't
hours.
heard it in your, I know you've been doing this for quite some time. If you haven't heard it in podcasts before, Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
Okay.
People should check that out. That guy's way of living was like, well, there was like, how are you the best at making sushi? He's like, I live it.
Right.
If you choose to do something and you want to be great at it, you live that thing.
Watching his hands, if you guys ever get a chance, if you watch him make sushi,
Just
it
full intention.
And there's absolutely no correction to it. Like he's doing everything deliberately, and it's steps to him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the plate. 1, 2, 3, 4. And he doesn't miss it. He's like watching a French chef that's been doing it for 50 years, sitting behind. And he doesn't even have to scream anymore. He'll just walk up and be like, "No, you did it wrong. You need to do it right."
Exactly. And so I think that he nailed it. The other thing too about South Korea, what's kind of cool about their pro teams is that they were first in the world to start seeing like the real buy-in from their culture.
Right.
They realized that, again, these kids are crafting something and putting themselves into it and pouring themselves into it. Why would you want to,
stifle that?
Why would you stifle that sort of thing? If it's something productive, nobody's getting hurt. It's not illegal. Like, it's something somebody's doing. Like,
and you can make a career out of it. I mean, one facet or another. Yeah, but I mean, even if it's not gaming, like honestly, I've worked in IT, I don't know, I'm going to make up a number here, but like 8 years, but 5 probably on paper, right? That, I could give to somebody and say,
totally.
But all I did was play games when I was a kid. Like I had like that Pentium 2 and I'd play StarCraft for hours, Like all I would do is just sit there and play StarCraft and then switch off to Halo on my Xbox One and just jam out, man. And at the time, it was always like, oh, my mom, Saturdays I'm burning the whole day just sitting here, just, skirmishing on StarCraft, and was it BlizzNet? What's it called? I can't remember.
Oh my gosh. BlizzardNet. Yeah.
Blizzard
but
Net,
it was BattleNet.
BattleNet.
Yeah. So that's their launcher for like their games where you can play.
Early days, man. I had my broadband hooked up. It was new and it was just like, oh my God. And you get modded games and you're like, what is this army?
Yeah. Now I have infinite something like, it's crazy out there.
But here I am. I've made a career out of that. I'm going to use it that way. Maybe whatever, life's life. But I feel like that kind of aimed me in that direction. I feel like that's great that a whole government can recognize that. And speaking of StarCraft, let me know if I'm wrong on this, but if I'm correct, that game, it had so much effect on that country that they actually have holidays set aside for in South Korea, so you could actually take time off of work or and go on to StarCraft Day. He has internet.
I'm
you be my young Jamie. I appreciate you.
You got it, man. But no, you're right. The launch of StarCraft 2 was a national holiday. So when they launched the newer version of StarCraft, like they were like, it's a national holiday.
Shut down.
But like you said, the buy-in was immense. Like literal ISPs, internet service providers in South Korea. I think it was called STK1 or something. I'm trying to remember now. They were the first ones to pioneer the gamer home where they housed their team together.
Oh, wow.
So they said, you need to work together and you're playing a game that's multiplayer. You guys need to live together, work together.
Like a fight camp. I wanted to get to
Jackson's lives here. Yeah, we have Jackson's Gym here in Albuquerque.
That's awesome.
I'm sure as many people may know from your podcast that we have that.
Right.
But you live it. You live it day to day. And they realized what that does. And again, that's part of the whole balance. And what I'm doing is I'm pursuing something I call game life balance. We can get into that here in a little bit too.
Sure. Yeah. Tear it up, man.
To go for more details. But yeah, they bought in and they were like, okay. And then they sponsored them, and then they were paying for their food, and then they were paying, their internet was paid for because it was an internet service provider that put them up, bought the house, and they didn't. They lived
and in South Korea, they were way ahead of us.
They don't have to worry about rent. They don't have to worry about food. They just play games.
Man,
and so huge. They had all that time to dedicate to their craft.
Well, and to extrapolate from that, that's essentially what the top 1% of elite pro gamers now, League of Legends, Call of Duty, you name it, those guys are doing something in that to the point where, and I've read articles on this, where these guys are teams that are sitting there, then they literally are in a house or a dorm, whatever you want to call it, their camp. And these guys are in front of the console with a coach that's like, you will not get up, you will, and it's scheduled out. And now it's, with the advent of the modern, fitness era, as I like to call it. Now it's like, these guys are putting just as much time into keeping their bodies in good shape, like any good athlete would. And then, some of them have a fitness, what do I want to say, personal trainer. But beyond that, they have a chef making the food for them, that's the top, that's where we've gotten to, that's where your university days esports could take you, right?
And so like, and I don't want to be like, throwing it completely off topic, but like, I'm going to come back to that real quickly. But as we were talking about like what people are tied in and who really makes the big waves, the owner of Optic Gaming, Hector they call him Optic Hex. He has a podcast now, but he talks very much in line though, like we said, with these other greats like Jiro, Dreams of Sushi, the young man, the gamer from South Korea, where it's like you put in that work though. You have to live esports if you want to become.
You can't BS it.
You can't be short. You have to be all in. And again, they're the guys. Optic Gaming stands on top of Call of Duty,
right?
And they have for years. And they're like, if you want to talk about dynasty in games, like this is like. It's like as if like the same team's been winning the World Series for like 20 years. It feels like they've been dominating, but they put in the work, the effort, the time. They've got great talent. They've got great coaches. There's all those things. And what's cool is like Cloud9, to get back to the point you were making about how they're evolving. 10 years ago, you looked at pro gamers and it was all shapes and sizes. Now, Cloud9 was a good example. On their Instagram, it's like got the plates that the chefs are like, the food they're feeding these kids is top-notch level nutrition based diets, and then they're also going to the gym every day.
Right.
So they
play
understand
video games. Man.
They understand being in that peak thing is not just a mindset and not just your hands. Once you have the full equilibrium going on, now you can be a top pinnacle of whatever you're doing.
You're not sharpening just the arrow. You're making sure the shaft is good. I said
exactly.
Shaft. And then the fletching, the knock,
all
knock,
parts.
I said it right. Yeah. I don't know if that's a good.
The fletching,
metaphor.
the knock. But right? No, you're right though. It's not just honing the tip where where you're there and that's what's it. But now it's like, again, because you can process better when you're eating well, you feel better. Like it's all of that.
What I love about that is it flies in the face of the typical stereotype of a video gamer sitting in his mom's basement, fat, jamming. No, mom, I don't want that. I want pizza rolls. And like you're sitting there and the dude's just jamming out all day. And these cats are. By definition, they're getting paid. They're getting sponsored.
Yep.
I mean, I'm imagining now it's cool to where you're getting laid if you're, right. And not to say I'm not,
right, no.
But to look at it comparatively to other things that come with, for lack of a better word, with the glamour, right? That there is in being an elite at some athletic, thing. Yeah. You're essentially an athlete now, even though you are, holding a controller or a keyboard and a mouse.
Right. And honestly, what's crazy is to think that they are that. And at the same time, what's kind of wild too is that gamers and professional gamers, by comparison to other athletes, though, aren't making at all what some of those people are making.
They're not paying.
They're making it up. They're like that. You're making it up in sponsors. They're making it up in like ad revenue, YouTube clicks and channel subscribes from like Twitch and stuff. But like the actual outright pay is still getting there. It's got a ways to go. It's kind of interesting business. When you start to break it down in other ways. It's kind of like, this is cool, but it's like players on NBA teams are like front money for the players on gamer esports teams. It's kind of like
so I worked with a place before, and I'm not going to try to chase this way off topic, but I worked for a hospital. Long story short, me and a cat that worked there, he's heavy into VR. He became a Vive developer on his own. He got certified. Messes with the Vive. So we go to this thing here in Albuquerque. It was I don't even know, IT conference, but for medical.
Maybe NMAA maybe, or
it was at the Pyramid. It was like a year and a half ago. So there's a company there. There's this lady standing behind the counter. Me and him were low level in IT. If you go to one of these conventions, they're just looking at your badge around your neck.
Do you make decisions?
Do you buy things? That's all they care about. So you walk by any of these tables with these vendors and they're just staring at your badge before they're like, oh yeah, hey, how are you? And if not, they don't really care. Here's a sticker or whatever. Here's some swag, go away. But we seen this lady and she's sitting there and she was just like the rest of them, not super interested in talking to us. After a few minutes, we start chatting and then we tell them that, hey, we're into VR. And where we were at, we worked for a hospital, a rehab hospital. Him and I had always talked about, and come to find out there is actually a few companies doing this, using Vive technology and or Oculus, so on and so forth, VR, right, virtual reality, and putting this on possibly like a recovering patient or a PTSD recovering person, and immerse them in this while they're maybe getting like physical rehab, or maybe just to calm them down, or maybe just to make healing rates go up, experiment essentially. So we'd always talked about this, but we're like, okay, well, this sign on the other side of it, come to find out, this lady hosted an esports team, and we were like, who is this? So apparently, and I may get in trouble for this, so I'm sorry ahead of time, but the company is Bytespeed, and they make custom PCs, mostly enterprise based. But this lady and a handful of other cats, much in the spirit of like how you're doing this with your friends, had made a case to Bytespeed that, hey, this is big. Bytespeed actually sponsored a team, and they're paying to have a team. And then, of course, Bytespeed makes custom computers, so they had the highest end stuff there. And we talked her into sending us a NUC, which is I don't know what the acronym is, but it's basically it's a out of the box virtual reality computer, which there are a lot of those now, but for the longest time you had to build a custom PC to be able to run virtual reality at its top level. But this thing was like something that you could buy a package deal, put it in your cart and buy it one time and you got all the stuff. So so we got to start playing with these things. It was amazing. And then we had other companies that started to kind of buy into it. But it was interesting to see her interest there, and then the dichotomy of her talking about the esports and just how big it was to this company. And it was interesting to see, like, we're talking about university, we're talking about NBA players fronting, but to see a company like that buy in, you're looking at the beginnings of, like, what if IBM buys into this? What if you get, the big dogs buy into this? Lenovo, you get, and of course, I'm sure I may be talking out of school here, but there may be teams with those guys already. But when you start to get mainstream into the guys that are the juggernauts in that hardware that's running these games, that's where you're going to see paydays jump up. You're going to see sponsorships jump up, and eventually it'll be to the point where you may be able to, like, compete at home, into some esports stuff. Not to say that's not there, but it may become even more mainstream, which would be huge. You'd have kids that are growing up dreaming to be an esports player. Right. Not to say there's not now, but
totally. And there are, and like the name, like you say, like the name Ninja, and everybody goes, oh, and he had roots in like Halo, I believe. Gotcha. And so like there was there's a lot of players who were talent now that were players way back when. Right. And so like, and what I've learned about streamers and content creators is that there's two directions that you can actually move from towards success. Either you're super entertaining and you suck and you get good, or you're great, like you are like top notch level, like you are god tier, like competitive. Sure. And that's why people watch you, is because you're the best in the like game, and then you become entertaining over time. Would
I be right in saying that the former that you mentioned, being entertaining and moderately good, is, and again, internet, forgive me for saying this, is that what PewDiePie kind of was? I never really understood how he rose to fame. Was
PewDiePie like just kept at it, like,
it was his entertainment was really what was
entertainment
good.
Factor. Like the Let's Play happened before like the streamers that are now live playing for following, for live watching. Right. So the Let's Play guys were doing content creation and edited stuff that they were uploading regularly. Okay. And then we had that advent of like, it swapped back and forth a little bit. It was like, oh, we had Let's Plays, they're going to have people watch them play a game. Then they were just curating video when people were watching them and putting on YouTube. And then YouTube got more replays than their live stuff. So they went back to more planned out content creation where they had like, post production stuff. Then, that they just keep at it, daily things, and again, PewDiePie is like one of the juggernauts. He is what I call the extreme example of what people can make doing streaming or doing like content creation.
Or playing in your mom's basement. Like
exactly, or something like that. And so, and it becomes something else. But then again, when you have like those pro players, like I said, like if they're making up some of that income revenue, or anybody on their hustle has more than one income stream, or tries to have multiple revenue streams.
So working at BK, but also getting their Twitch revenue until they're making
right, because they're getting clicks, they're getting likes, there's bits, people can cheers you on, people can donate straight to you.
So what we're kind of talking about, just for anybody that may not know, is the various VODs, video on demand services that are out there. Now that I know what that actually means, YouTube, Twitch is real big about it. YouTube is real late to the game. I don't want to speak out of school, but Discord, I think there's a few of these different, I think even Twitter, can't you stream
Discord was more of like a chat tool, but their Facebook showed up real late. But when they show up with like several billion users, like you have to let them in. But I mean
from your PlayStation now, you can hit a button. There's a whole button dedicated, a mixer, whole piece of the GPU like set aside, and the GPU is a part of the graphical processing unit, essentially set up just to do this one function of sharing what you're playing, whether that be with 10 homies or just you, whatever, onto Twitch, onto YouTube.
1,000 or more people watching live.
And now people are actually making money. Joe Schmo sitting at home, or even would I be speaking out of school talking about mobile? I mean,
there are now mobile gamers, but they also are going to the point where like there's people who play mobile PUBG and then they stream it, but they're doing it also in a way that they're playing the mobile, but they can also still have a studio kind of setup that's very similar to console stuff. Wow. But yeah, there's people who are playing all sorts of things.
But they're making money is what the ultimate point is. Yeah. And even if it's not a lot at first, you can make a ton of cash off Twitch if you're good at entertaining both, either or,
Exactly. It's that growth from micro influencing to major and then full on influencer. Just like when you are an influencer in that field in gaming or entertainment, they're the guys who get like the copy of the game early. There's the guys who they get a preview. They get a preview of it because the developers are like, oh, we're going to sell more units because we got it
in front of PewDiePie's 70 million subscribers.
Professor Broman or King Gothalion for Destiny. Like keeping that fresh and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. Like every game has its scene, and you can even go like those who are Reddit lurkers out there, people who haven't been on Reddit before. Reddit has subreddits, and those are great resources to start with if you're just trying to get into a game and find out what's the acceptable like high level strategies.
Sure.
If you go to Reddit and you Google search the name of the game you're playing, or Google search, you search on Reddit for the name of the game you're playing, like you'll find that subreddit, and that subreddit has all kinds of resources.
Start giving you those edges the pros use or whatever.
I mean, because like Blizzard has like icy veins, and you can go learn how to play anything from the ground up. When I started, I had no experience in WoW, and my roommate took me from 0 to like max level before Legion dropped, and we did that in less than 24 hours of gameplay over a couple weekends. Dang. And so, but we used those resources, icy veins. I did a little homework, spent a few minutes on my lunch just looking through like strat, learning how to play the game on the keyboard.
I want you to know this is why you're on this podcast right now, because that is truly the pursuit of greatness and what you're trying to do. Man, I love that. I love the fact that that is your background, and that is why I think that you are the advisor. That's like the wizard, right? You're not the president. You're not you're like the wizard. You're like, every great leader always has a wizard in the background. You know what I'm saying? That they go to, they're like the prophet, like, what shall we do?
Well, and again, like I just want to, like I said, with being in the advisor position, I just want to help get that direction out there, help them avoid those pitfalls, and just say, hey, we want to find success. Let's keep aiming at success. And if we're going to fail, let's fail fast and learn.
What do you play? What is your
my game of choice?
Yeah.
What do I play, dude? Last time I was playing anything regularly, I was playing Destiny, and then that was like, I was actually starting to lead and teach raids in Destiny.
Oh, wow.
Destiny 1. So Destiny 1 proper, or not proper, but Destiny 1 when it had all of its expansions out, but just before Destiny 2.
Okay.
I actually got to the point where I was actually looking into doing like paid raid workshops.
Wow.
Where I was going to teach people end game content in a game that only I think it was like less than 10% or less than like a very small percentage of players ever saw the end game content and actually beat it. And I was like, I'm going to do this like 4 hours a week and take people through a workshop and beat it with them, because I think more people should experience like that kind of fun, triumphant moment. That we did it. Like
it's a blast to be on headsets and be with people, even if they're complete strangers. Battlefield is a big one for me.
Oh yeah.
Excuse me, for a big one for me. And I'm that, and I can hear the boos already, but like I'm that guy because I like the destruction of it. And Call of Duty is faster. It's got its own pros as does Battlefield, and as well as cons on both sides. But I just like the style of Battlefield, and then I'm a big World War fan. So the way that they came out of their beginning stuff, what was it, 1942 was one of the first ones.
Yeah, that was one of the ones, I think one of the early ones that had like the massive online player thing, where there was huge battle maps, and you had just like the big waypoint stuff where it was just like my friends are gonna kill me because I used to play Battlefield 4 with them all the time. I don't even remember the name of the game variants, but yeah, man, it was your
Conquest, man. That's
Conquest.
Where I was at.
There
yes,
you go.
Sir.
So like
all day.
So we were playing that. Actually, I played with a guy who was just a little aside here. I don't even know if his handle's still Medio, but he was one of the top.
Medio, that's you.
Yeah, so he was one of the best helicopter pilots though in the world in Battlefield 4.
Oh man, the helicopters. That's what I'm talking about.
Dude, he was the guy who was swapping seats and mowing down full rooftops of dudes and then rolling out.
Right.
And then he was doing just nutty stuff. If he had 2 engineers on a helicopter, dude, we would have like
because you're healing the helicopter while you're rolling.
And then we're just RPGs and we're just knocking down other choppers. For
you're bringing the nerd out of me. I love it,
dude. It was amazing. And like I said, we were going up because of him. We were we're helping him, but he was. Do you remember when they took off the I call it the baby bumpers? When they let you could actually barrel roll and backflip the helicopters.
No.
So do you remember that massive patch for Battlefield 4 where they updated like all the like hitboxes in the maps and all
you get stuck in the ground a lot before they did that. Yeah.
Do you remember that update?
Okay, yes.
So in that update, they took what I call the baby bumpers or the roll cage off of the helicopters because you couldn't tilt it far enough to actually turn it upside down. They took it off and you could actually do barrel rolls and loop the loops.
So all those
and that guy was so about that.
Okay.
So here we were in like I forget the name of the maps, but the one that has like the cityscape and you can knock down that big building in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah, we were in there and he's doing like loop the loops and barrel rolls into like the cityscape.
Rockets are coming at him.
Dude, you are a madman. He was a monster. And then when the new Battlefield 1 came out, it was that little I called it like the mud skipper tank.
Okay.
And he also wrecks at that, dude.
Right.
He's just a madman. He's a mad lad.
I've always thought that one of the things that they've left out of gaming that, like it's there in a lot of them, like Call of Duty sort of, Quake, it's been there sort of like when you die and you have that camera that floats around behind the player. I always thought it'd be cool if they had a feature where you could record and fly around that camera and actually try to use it more as a recording device. And I know that there's methods of doing that. You can screen capture what you're looking at. There's, your PS4 is constantly recording everything you're doing. So even if you're floating behind a player, but that's all built in, locked in. I would like to have control of my camera and actually, because some of those scenes that happen in Breakdown, even in a game like League of Legends, I wish that I could, really capture that from a cinematic aspect and then replay that and maybe use that more, you know what I mean? Like the breakdowns.
That'd be beautiful. I mean, we're already kind of like you'll see, like if you go deeper, anybody who goes in deeper to esports, you'll see that these top games have a spectator mode. Okay. And then some of them have gotten so much so that like League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, CSGO, have like a commentator spectator mode where they can see even more in-depth data immediately. So you can actually, like in CSGO, when you watch people play live and you're watching from the commentator's perspective, or just like if you're watching it as a spectator with them, you can see where the other team is through the walls highlighted. You can see like where their grenade arc is going.
I think Rainbow Six is a lot like that.
Yeah, you can see all of that stuff in a spectator mode. So that's built in. Like you said, a lot of these games and AAA titles are just building it on, especially for the ones that can be competitive, because they know that when they get to that level, if they're going to play competitive on a circuit, and then the developer gives those blessings to the tournament organizers to then take it into a league, then they're like, oh, well, it's already built in. So cool. Right. Like, and now people can really check out our game in new ways.
Do you know, or have you heard of, and I didn't look it up, is there VR anything coming along? I have some buddies that talk about some Call of Duty-esque VR games. They're a little tough because there's a lot of factors to that. Like it's fresh technology, right? Controls are very specific. The only thing that's really worth its weight, I think, is the Vive in terms of playing a game where you can use your hands and move your body in a space. Because a Vive, just for you guys listening, it tracks where your physical location is, whether you're standing, you're laying on the ground, whatever you're doing. Whereas like an Oculus, it only understands where the headset's at and the controllers in your hands. Yeah. So do you see esports? Is there, I guess I should ask, any VR esports tournaments coming along?
So I was just told by the guys, the executive board of the UNM Esports group today, we were in fact talking about some of these points because we went to Destination Dell, shout out Dell, but like we were there and they were showing us some VR stuff in their truck. And then we were talking about it just briefly afterwards, having lunch, and we're like, somebody said, yeah, there's some games that are now starting in VR to start doing like tournaments. Yeah. And I already brought it up. I brought it up to like, cause UNM has a Dell rep for the campus. I was like, that's the thing, is there's 2 VR labs on campus. I need to go start talking to those folks who actually support it from the IT side and from the people who are administrating it from whatever schools they exist in, or library, wherever it is. I don't know yet. I will know soon. But that's the next question we have to ask, because even though I'm aware of like, I'm not playing Halo anymore, that's not the game to play. These kids, like, it's funny to see these guys, like a senior and a sophomore, who are running this thing. And like, we talk about like things like Fortnite, and then the groans sometimes I get from some of the people it's kind of like for me when I was like, oh man, like that game, like, but the thing of the fact of the matter is that that's what people want to play. That's their first game. Yeah. We were introduced on this game. That's what we remember. That's what we're fond of. Sure. But as it keeps going, like, some kids' first game's Beat Saber. Right. And Beat Saber on, like, it looks like, when I watch the videos on YouTube, it looks like so much fun, dude. Yeah. And I love that it's like, I'm a rhythm game kind of guy. My girlfriend actually just got me into DDR recently. Nice. And I hadn't played it since I was at New Mexico 10 years ago.
Dude, I'm not coordinated enough for Dance Revolution.
You are. Everybody is. And it's so intimidating to watch people like hold onto the back rail and stomp it out. They get like triple A's and they're playing on the expert, and you're watching arrows fly by.
Oh, I love that.
But once you get into it, you can. Everybody can. It's
I was good at Guitar Hero-ish.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's kind of the same
Rock
thing.
Band and expert, like on all the different stuff. But yeah, no, it's doable. But like I said, rhythm games are fun to me. I feel like it's a really good way to get people in, even if they're just like a music kind of like, I like music. Okay, well maybe this game. Again, it's for everybody. What I like about it, VR, like you said, just being, that's where technology is going. Right. We have to ask that question. That why wouldn't we? Like,
that's the absolute bleeding edge.
What does the esports arena look like when you have a VR head to head? Because right now we know what it looks like when they have like Call of Duty, or when they have like Overwatch or whatever. We know what that looks like. We've seen it now. But what does it look like when you have 5 dudes rigged up on either side in VR cubes and they're playing a 5v5? Like how wild is that going to look?
Have like squash ball rooms all loaded up with people because they had to like build it out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who are probably going to be shaking their head, and I apologize guys now, but it's not stopping. Technology is here. Like the whole world has changed since technology really like the internet too. The internet we can't go back. Like this is how it is now. Information's moving so fast.
Well, and then the efficacy of mobile getting in and the faster the internet gets. I mean, there's, and I'm talking out of school because even though you and I are both in IT, we really deal with the very low end of like evolutions of things. Like we're not dealing with like the bleeding edge and R&D and stuff like that. But I know of a lot of stuff, as do you. We hear a lot of stuff. We just keep our noses in it. But one of the techs I think is really awesome, which I think is going to be the defining factor for VR in particular, is you have a cable connected to you in that headset and almost all the different types of tech. And you can wear a laptop that you have a backpack on. There's different ways that they've been able to manipulate things, but essentially you're still tethered to tech that's been around since the 90s in one aspect or another in terms of how it works. But there is a Li-Fi. Have you heard of Li-Fi? Where they use light to transmit your data now?
No, I haven't seen it in like practice yet. I heard about it a long time ago, and I know
you can't really move, which is the issue.
Like I was gonna say, like fiber though, like it needs a direct. You need to have the light beam.
Yeah, and it needs to be. And there's no way to. It would be a tough thing to do. But essentially, a light bulb plugs in, and you get your Wi-Fi out of that. But it's at like 5 times the speed that even a gigabit connection, which would be almost your fastest that you can get, more or less at a home level.
Right.
And that would be something that would take away a lot of cables, is things like that. And then if wireless power, if and when that ever becomes a thing, or just ridiculously small batteries.
Totally.
So I kind of went into the weeds with VR.
I totally feel it. With VR, we got a little bit into like technology talk for sure. But that's the thing. What's cool about esports is that it starts off as, I think, a technology appreciation. And that's what I think is cool. Like when with the UNM Esports and with esports at the collegiate level, we're trying to attract those STEM students. We want those kids who are in computer sciences to come check us out. And then what's neat too,
that are the higher level comparatively to us. I got
and then once we get, through the obvious, like, groups and stuff like that, now we're talking about broadcast, like the school of, Anderson School of Business, who has marketing people. Like, again, we talked about social media. So social media and outreach, like all these different disciplines live and reside in gaming.
Right.
When you're talking about even the entertainment level, when you're building a game, you're world building. So that's fiction. You're a writer. So
you just made this sound exciting as hell for everybody.
So like I said, everybody can be involved and get involved into esports or gaming in some way. But like I said, once you're outside of that and you're talking about the production and the live and the competition side of things, you need stage engineers and audio engineers and people who can show up and do live broadcasting.
Like our boy, Mr. Ben Lowman.
Exactly.
I need you, bro.
Yeah.
We need some setup crew.
I know. I should probably go talk to NRG about like how to build a rig or something.
Yeah.
But like I said, there's way more disciplines that are involved than people give it credit for, and that's what's beautiful about it. And
it's shaken off the I wouldn't say the stigma, but kind of the generic vision of
stereotype.
Stereotype. That's the word I'm looking for.
Totally.
Like I said, the fat kid down in his basement eating pizza rolls.
Yeah, you want to hear something funny about the fat kid eating pizza rolls in his basement? I had a conversation a few years back when I was going to Call of Duty World League and took a team out. I did this for another organization, and we did it through fundraising and a lot of front end being fronted by me, but we did a lot of fundraising and got out there. We got our butts kicked, but we did the experience. I actually got to meet Optic Hex out there briefly, and I asked him a few years ago, I was like, what about the K through 12? What about the college? But that was before Overwatch League. I didn't know Overwatch League was happening. So he also, because I think it's Houston Outlaws is Optic Gaming's Houston Outlaws plays Overwatch for them. Okay. And so like, I didn't know that was what they were on the cusp of. That was obviously, in hindsight 2020, that's what they were working on, like trying to break out with the whole Overwatch League, which is worldwide. Their franchise is worldwide. And I think London Spitfire was the inaugural champions of Overwatch League, and they beat out Philadelphia Fusion. Shout out to the North American guys. Like I said, we're now standing our ground in a lot of different ways. Again, I had a conversation that I was looking for sponsors. I found myself talking to a local burger chain's marketing director, and it's one that we know of. We don't have to really say who it is, but if you're in New Mexico,
there's a Itza in there, right? Do I get it right?
Yeah, there's a lot of and Itzas in there. So, but and I actually brought it to them, and I said, we could use a sponsor. We're looking for like those homegrown institutions that people just know, and we want to do that. And it's still with UNM Esports. We're still looking to start that up again. So now we're talking to hardware manufacturers, like you said. We're already talking to some people. We've been approached. We got some test machines coming in soon that we're going to get our hands on, top to bottom.
I like it.
And so the next natural steps are looking for that local buy-in too, because New Mexico fans are big fans. But when we were speaking, we happened to be having a back and forth, and she was just bringing up the point that gamers, sitting in their parents' basement eating Cheetos or whatever, or eating whatever nondescript chip or snack. and I was like, yeah, but what's funny is I picked up as soon as she stopped, and I said, yeah, but they're a part-time employee at your place, and they're a part-time student at UNM. Right. These people aren't just one thing. They're everything. Like they're a person. This person is more multifaceted than people give them credit for.
Right. This is like the cat that's super good at playing basketball in his backyard, but he still
goes home and plays Fortnite, dude.
Yeah. Okay. No, I got you. Yeah. But I mean, like in terms of, I got you. No, and I think that's going to speak to a lot of things because we've got to get buy-in. If it's going to take off here, it's still going to be able, you want to have people show up to tournaments. Oh, yeah. You want to have support. You want to have vendors that know that there's going to be people coming, and across the board, that's going to rise. We all rise. I did a VR podcast in virtual reality, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was Vive, and then we were both inside of Rumi. Shout out to Rumi, RUMII, and they're essentially the Skype of
that's so
of VR.
Cool.
It's awesome, and Harvard picked him up. Full Sails, where he was an alumni from there, Mr. Albert Pettis.
Awesome.
And we were inside of that. He showed me some of the, we were clicking buttons, and I would pop into a different room, and I'm looking at this giant screen. I got a PDF below me, but that was essentially where I think things are going to have to be. The mindset has to be there. We need to make it to where businesses and universities can see it, and then it's usable. And, it's like, oh yeah, I do know how to use a Vive because I went to school wearing one, a whole class I did wearing a Vive, that's intense to me. And I think that's the direction this thing needs to go. I want to go left field a little bit here. All this gaming, all these people doing this stuff, all this training, this is still technology. And as you and I both know, as a lot of people know, you always hear this word hack, right? You always hear this word, you always hear about nefarious people.
Hacks,
even at the highest level. You can YouTube videos, look up on YouTube, people that are cheating at these giant tournaments. Through one method or another, how much of that is there out there, and how would somebody cheat at something like that? I mean, let's not go too far into it, but kind of 30,000 foot view me on that. Like,
yeah. So I couldn't really even give you too many even granular details about how one would cheat now. But what's really cool about, or I say cool, but what's really interesting is that those players who put in the hard work and effort, and those who pros are on the up and up, they can spot it. So you can tell immediately when somebody's doing something that's not natural.
Right.
And that's what's really cool about it. These guys have put so much time and effort and hours and things of learning this game and how it works. They can notice it like immediately. They're like, whoa, wait a minute. That's not right. We know
this
that
guy's
by this
level
time,
should not be this good.
Yeah, this guy should not be this way. Like there's no way. And like we know that this guy can't get here fast enough physically because there's in the strategy, I don't know, like back in the Halo days, like people would ask me like, how did I blah, blah, blah. I used to learn the timing on weapons drops.
Sure.
So you would know when a weapon actually spawned into a map. I would learn that.
Or where specifically.
And where and things like that.
Okay.
But very much when. So knowing those timings, I would count how long it took me from spawn to get to a certain position to look down a firing lane. I would count it.
Just take a beeline as soon as you get in the game.
Because then I knew if it took me 5 seconds and I know the most optimal route, and I used to practice jumping around the map trying to get places more effectively and efficiently, I know I can beat most people there, but I know if somebody's there, then I'm already ready for them. And then, like I said, like what outside of that purview, if they're there faster, if you know that they're already like gunning, they're either they've got some foresight or there's something else at play. And again, there's some more obvious ones too. I'd say that hacks are a little bit less prevalent. A lot of developers are building in hack resistant things as well as like tool sets.
Right. Well, like Blizzard will ban you for life. Like you're gone.
Yeah, there's real things. Like people get bans. They'll get bans on accounts until at some point, like there's a threshold where they'll just ban your IP. So then at one point they'll actually just ban from where you're playing.
So you can't even play from your house.
Yeah, no, they're just like, we're done. Like we're not going to.
And you're not allowed to play with proxies, which is where you're trying to hide your IP. I think, right? Isn't there a thing against?
Right. Proxies? There's technologies out there that, like I said, a lot of developers employ with their server systems because they're also trying to protect their assets and things too. Because if they're going to host traffic through their things, they want to make sure that they're protected.
It's fair. Yeah.
Fairness is a big thing, and like I said, it amazes me that, like you said, people have the gall to try to cheat. Even in something like it's not so much high tech in gaming in esports per se, but Magic the Gathering just went like a huge thing for playing a trading card game. Just went through a huge to do about people at high end tournaments, like where you're paying like $60 to be in a tournament and compete and try to win real money
and practicing.
That they were cheating and doing shuffling in ways that they were keeping their like deck in order where they wanted it, and they were like. Then even if somebody else shuffled it, they kind of had it built in a way so that boom, you were just going to shuffle it right into the order.
Casino level.
It's nuts. And it's quite amazing with the efforts that people will go to try to win. And like I've always been, even when we had hackers hit our lobbies in Halo days, I never
I had it happen to me, man.
Yeah. I never quit. My brother and I told him, I was like, we're not going to quit, dude. Like we had friends, like we would play all night with people. We get hackers in our lobby and then they would quit. They're like, I'm not going to play with these guys. Like they're hacking, obviously. we would just try to beat them.
I remember Halo 2 had come out when you finally could play fully online, outside of connecting the Xboxes together, which is what a LAN party was. And when I was playing Halo 2 online, I remember popping into a room, and when I would pop into a room, there was all the whole entire team was standing around, and they had it set up, hacked, air quotes, to where everybody on my team would spawn into one location, and then the entire other team would get in a circle around that spot. And every time everybody would come in, they're all just standing there shooting. Yeah. And they're just doing that till they win the round over and over. And they're laughing and talking, because I think at that point you could still talk to each other's teams.
Yeah, everybody was
cross-comm, and it infuriated me, but it was the first time I'd seen it. And this is again earlier years and North American, I guess, gaming online and stuff like that.
Well, and we were younger then, so like we bring up, like, as you bring up the point of like when it was happening, that's why I think I'm also looking to be involved. Like, I'm also on the committee for NMAA for esports at the high school level in New Mexico. And so I've been also trying to help it at, and one of the big things is obviously the objectives are a little bit different from collegiate to that age group too. But the thing about high school though is that we're trying to be a resource for these kids in a way that it's, why are we playing a teen rated game versus a mature rated game?
Right.
We're going to play these types of games instead. Like, you're sorry, but deal with it. Like, we're not going to pursue like mature rated games, Call of Duty,
following the rules, like really.
Following the rules.
Sure.
And we, anybody who's been into a GameStop, like if you ever bought a mature rated game and you ever specified it was for a kid or a kid was with you, they flip the box around and say, this is mature rated for this, and this reason. You get a spiel because there's a system out there for it. But again, what it is we're trying to do is in the high school level, is I'm trying to also address toxicity, and whether it be hacking or like manipulating the system, but also just like negativity through like
the culture of it.
Voice comms and the culture of it.
Yeah.
Like anybody who says that it's not there is lying to you. And any gamer that plays games and has ever played at a high level knows it exists. Like it's spam, it's a chat, it's
racism, sexism,
misogyny, you name it. It's bad out there. And honestly, it got to the point where like there was a big thing back in 2014, I think it was, the Gamergate.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So just like the cliff notes on that, guys, was like, there was a female developer who was getting harassed through social media because she was a female.
Right.
And through somebody, they thought that somebody was writing an article to be biased. You can go get the details. I might be wrong. Don't quote me, but essentially there was females that were getting attacked in the gaming community. And Mike Morheim from Blizzard actually at the beginning of BlizzCon was like, we're not that, guys. Like, we're the gaming community. We have to look out for our own.
It's supposed to be fun.
We're supposed to be a bunch of introverts who decided to like do something different. And when we can come together in something that we're passionate about, we're better than that. We can be better than that. We have to be better than that. Because like you said, by meeting a stigma or a stereotype head on and fitting it, we're just perpetuating it forever. So if we can address toxicity in gaming at a young age with young gamers who are already going to be prone to going home and playing a Fortnite or PUBG or whatever they're playing at the time.
That age, man, where you are you're so impressionable.
And that's the thing is like, you're looking up to these players and stuff, and they see that the people are cursing or whatever. I have nothing wrong with cursing, but like I said, it's personal preference. But like to have some sort of decorum about you when you're at a high level of influence, like, try to fit maybe a hero archetype instead of like such a chaotic, neutral kind of person. Like, it's much better for that development. Like, we want them to be, healthy, citizens and people who can go out into the world and make friends and be able to do things professionally instead of like so disconnected. And so by having these LANs, even at the high school level, like you said, when they get to competition level, they come to a physical location together. Yeah. So it's no longer me and you behind the headset, miles away. Right. Once we get to the championship rounds of the high school level, they're going to be somewhere physically located with each other. And they're going to have to face up to it.
They're going to have to act like humans.
Right. Well, and
you're
again,
not behind the computer wall.
And that's where I think we have a very big opportunity as gamers, the older gamers, I say, the previous generation of gamers, to be influential in a positive way, to take that on and to look at things like what happened in Florida with Madden, to talk to those kids and try to make sure that those resources are there to meet them.
You're talking about what happened in Florida. Just for people that don't know, there was a tournament going on.
Right.
And there was, I want to say, a personal tiff between
I'm not sure on the details on that. That would be something I would probably say. Okay. People go dig for that. You can find it on Google. But essentially what it came down to is that somebody had a weapon on them and fired upon other participants in the tournament and killing a few people and shooting and injuring others before killing themselves. Is very tragic.
It's weak.
And for me, I never thought that my community, my gaming community, I never thought the gaming community would ever have seen that.
Same here.
Like if you told me like where it was going to happen next with all the stuff that's been going on out there, I never would have in a million years said, "Oh, it's going to happen at like a Halo tournament or a Madden tournament."
Or that somebody could take it that serious,
and it wasn't even like an FPS or a TPS where like a Gears of War or like a Halo. This happened at a Madden tournament, and the thing is that had he had the resources available to him to have that help at some point, they probably would have been able to be like, "Hey man, like how are you doing, by the way?" Like,
that's huge that you're saying
and that's what we're trying to do is build that up with the gamers to say, these are your comrades, these are your friends, these are your family, like treat them, like you want to be treated, and do those basic tenets that we were given so just regularly as kids. Like, and I think that would help combat a lot of that stuff and a lot of that stereotype and stigma.
I love it. What is your thoughts on, Olympics? Do you think that's ever going to get to that? I mean, I know we're talking big, but shoot, let's go for it.
If we're talking like end goal, and I'm probably speaking for way too many gamers out there who do like the professional tournament organizing and stuff like that, I think that like it would be really cool from a personal standpoint. Sure. I think that we probably got about 5 more years until it gets really looked at again.
Sure.
I know that
what can you can ski on a snow shovel now. So I feel like if you can ski on a snow shovel and win a gold medal for your country, I think that you can. Check me on that. Would you? You can ski on a snow. Isn't that an Olympic sport? Because I thought that was the most ridiculous.
Let's see, snow shovel. Downhill.
Yeah, I'm a varsity snow shoveler at UNM.
This way, curling is a thing. Right. Not to bash on curling, but you know what? One of the easiest ways to get into the Olympics is by carrying shovel racing.
Is it my right?
It's called shovel racing. I don't know if it's Olympic. It might be like X Games and like Red Bull levels, but I could be wrong, guys. I don't know.
But I mean, that's so mainstream, and for the people that do it.
Desired snow at the Winter Olympics, nature isn't playing. Oh no, that's a whole other thing. Anyway, so but that's the thing is like. There was talk of like golf going into like the Summer Olympics, and everybody was like, okay, well, then like the conversation, like you said, what's strange was when we talk Olympics, we talk about what defines a sport. We say esports and people get a little weird.
Guys.
If you look it up, there was roundtables at one of the Olympics where they handed papers to some previous Olympic athletes, and like pro athletes were sitting around, and they said cyber athlete. That was another thing. We used to say cyber athlete instead of just, play games.
Makes you sound like you're the Borg or something,
And so, right. Yeah. But they see the word athlete or they see the word sport, and everybody thinks physical exertion. What they don't think, or what they don't stop to say is like, but it's honing a craft. It's still putting in the time. Right. It's still putting in the effort. It's still effort and exertion.
Yeah. Maybe it's 10,000 hours in that.
Right. 10,000 hours. And so now that the money has shown up, now you're seeing that like slowly, like kind of like turn of like the corner where now people are like, they used to laugh at it. Like they would laugh at it like in a round table, like they'd be handed paper. Oh, cyber athletes made, and then they see the number, like the top player made over $1 million last year. And then PewDiePie in 2014 makes like $4 million in revenue after ad revenue. And that's not even including like his, merchandise sales. And he still donated over $1 million to charity, as well. And again, extreme examples. But when I was out in Taos and I came back from that tournament for Call of Duty, I asked real questions. I was working at a financial institution and asked the president at the time, who's now the CEO. And I said, what would it take to get that kind of like business venture money, like from a financial institution for this kind of a thing?
Yeah.
And his response was market research. And I'm like, well, what if the market doesn't exist? What if it's brand new? And he was like, even better market research, because he was like, it has to be airtight.
Yeah.
Like it's
that makes sense.
But now there's examples on all ends, and now it's like,
I'm not going to the game,
right? I'm not going to be buying. Yeah, I'm not going to be buying a franchise anytime soon, like for Overwatch League guys for Albuquerque. But hey, if we could get some people out there who want interest, they can find me, and we'll start up a pro team, and I think it's doable.
You guys can hit up Bernardo.
Yeah, man. We need to put something for these kids to aim for, man. It's like, Albuquerque's got a lot of things that can be talked about that are negative, but when it comes down to it, I think if we pursue something like esports, we can get some real pride and things back in line and say, hey, like we have something to do now out here. We have something we can, have fun with. We have a place where we can get together and celebrate, what these kids are into.
I listened to, and I'm being a bit cheeseball here, but I was listening to Joe Rogan, and the Killer Mike was on there, from Run the Jewels.
Yeah, man.
And the man was talking such wisdom. I just couldn't believe it, because he was talking about how Joe Rogan was telling me, he's like, well, people kind of want to get away from, a place. And I'm not bashing Albuquerque, but statistically, and all these different, lists that we're on, worst place to raise a child out of the 50 states,
rough.
Car thieves,
theft and attempted car thefts, all that.
People always want to lead, like, oh man, I got out of there after I, graduated, whatever.
Yeah.
But he talked about how to him, and the way he was raised, is it was almost like you you don't necessarily owe it to the place you were raised at, but you put those years in there. You put the time in there, that community. You were part of that. No matter what you can try to say, you can't just erase that. It's not a video game. You can't just erase the save.
Right.
And to go back and push, I think that like what you're speaking about is basically pushing back against these stereotypes that Albuquerque as a whole has been put into. We're seen as this, let's say you're moving from outside of here, maybe Albuquerque would be like a scary place to bring your kids or something like that. But if you did have, maybe I'm going on a limb, but like an esports program and or all the other great things about Albuquerque that you could point your kids at and or be a part of, and then also build up by bringing your knowledge here. Yep. And if you leave and go to Harvard and come back and start a business and become the guy that invests into that airtight, business for, an Overwatch or a LAN cafe, whatever.
Or just an esports franchise. Like, again, there's like you said, like we talked about Cloud9, we said Optic Gaming a couple of times, FaZe is out there. These names they're synonymous with greatness out in the esports realm now, and they're the pros. But, like I said, now we're trying to see, what can we do for improvement. And I think that this is, like you said, a great place to give back from top to bottom. And it's the kids, man. Like, they're the next generation. They're the ones that are going to take care of us when we're old, man. And hopefully they are the ones who fix, some of the biggest problems we have out there. We got to put hope somewhere.
Sure.
We got to build it up. Like you said, Albuquerque might be rough, dude, but Albuquerque and New Mexico loves hard. Oh, they love in the biggest way here in this state. And I'm sure if any folks from the local area, and I'm going to be going through your back catalog, you better believe it.
I appreciate
I hope that somebody said it, because New Mexico it cares deeply for those that are here. Like, it's a very welcoming place.
Honestly, it's surprising. Doing this podcast since 2017, I've honestly been surprised. A lot of friends that I've gone to high school with, me and you went to high school together. There was a few guys that I've had on, Sergio, Dwight. I'm not trying to forget anybody. I love all you guys, but anybody that I've done these things with across the board, every one of them has positive input about where we live. And you look at the media, you pull up MSN homepage, going to work one day, and it's like top 50 states and worst, blah, blah, blah. And we're always there. And I'm like, man, you know what? But I'll tell you what, right now, I kind of, I give a shit. You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of people that do. And I think because of that, you can take that what you want, but I think it's media fear mongering at its finest. You know what I mean?
Right.
And because it's not that bad here, I don't think. And I think what you're doing is great with the esports. I think if UNM picks you up, and if they don't pick you up, I think that's going to be, like you said, a misfire on their part. And I'm really hoping to see great things come out of this. And when you do pick up as a official UNM team, or not to say you're not, but as you are leading your direction, I want to get you back on, man.
And like you said, and what we're doing here too, guys, like, just to shout out what we need right now. We need alums to come and give us a hand. We need some donors. We need some sponsors and major partnerships to really show up to the door.
How can these guys get a hold of you? Give me some websites.
Okay, whatever. Here we go. Yeah, let's do that. We actually stood up the official organization site. It's esports.unm.edu.
Okay.
They can hit the contact page there. They can reach me at it's probably easiest at esports@unm.edu. And then you can just make sure in the subject line you put, Bernardo Gallegos in there, and then just let me know what we're up against and what we can do to come together on something. Like I said, we've got a lot of interest from a lot of some major players in the game. Just to give you, like I said, the Mountain West Conference is an example. We got invited to a major tournament from a major broadcasting
Pac-12
group.
school, right?
Or well, Pac-12. We're Division I. We're Mountain West Conference. I don't remember if we're Pac-12 or not.
I'm talking out of school. I never went to.
I don't remember. Like I said, I don't remember if we're Pac-12 or not. But we're a Division I school, and we live in the Mountain West Conference, and so we're doing that and pursuing that. But also other collegiate leagues for other things. We're getting to the table at Rainbow Six now, and like I said, this group of individuals is super driven. I didn't say John's name. John Mooney's. He's another student, and Ronnie. He's going to kill me. Lindhart. He's a big-hearted kid. These guys are driven. It's amazing. We're, like I said, esports.unm.edu.
So there's a future with that. I mean, you guys, anybody wanted to jump on, even if you feel like you don't have it, send your VOD in, right? Would I be wrong? Wait, is that too early?
Well, just let us know. We're looking for future students. We're looking for current students. You have to be a halftime or better by the institution standards of UNM. So that's 6 hours, I believe. But don't quote me. Check out on the website what halftime means at UNM, guys. But if you're a current student or an alum or a future student, check us out online. Even all social media. I'm thinking we still have a Snapchat going up soon, but we've got Twitter. It's all UNM Esports. Just hit it up. Like, it's literally at UNM Esports, and we can drop it on like when you set us up. But yeah, it's we're there. We're already existing, and we're in the space. And like I said, pursuing the NMAA next for high school. That's the next piece. And I also happen to be the president for Albuquerque Extra Life.
Nice.
So if you want to learn how to play video games and help kids at UNM Children's Hospital, you can get a hold of me as well.
What a cool thing to do.
So I'm doing a little bit of everything around esports, my dude. So
your resume is growing, brother. I'm proud of you, man, for sure. Well, this was fun as hell, dude. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. And like I said, I think next time I was short notice, just not short notice on your part, but for me, I was trying to get the guys. We want to get Steven and Dieter on here because I think that their perspective is important. And like I said, it belongs in the hands of the gamers and the people who understand it the most. It's a passion project. They have the build, they have the passion, they have the drive, and they have the smarts, man. They're brilliant kids. And like I said, as this evolves and if we go into that formal kind of thing, you know, it's me and those two dudes and a few others that are definitely trying to make sure that it's going to be successful for everybody all around. So
nice. Well, keep your nose clean out there. Keep working on your 10,000 hours.
Oh, yeah, man.
Make sure that you guys are trying to add to the positive culture. We don't want that toxic. And, you know, if there's a girl on or there's some kid on, you know, and you happen to be the opposite of those things, I want you to go out of your way to make sure that you don't allow other people to be toxic. Cause you know, just in my time, you know, I'm 30 as well. And I've gone through different iterations, different games and different consoles. I've seen it all the time. And I think that you talking about that culture, the toxic culture is huge. And I love that a lot of the, you know, Microsoft bans people for cursing now. I know that, there's, you know,
there's ways to report players that are toxic and things like that online now. It's
even gamer tags that are offensive. They'll ban you and knock you out. And I love the fact that they're trying to make this serious. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just get out there and be cool. Like, enjoy the thing you enjoy, guys. Like, keep doing it. If you love it, you're there because you've had fun. Right. Gaming is all about having fun, and that's what it is. You're playing a game. Have fun.
Right. And don't miss the point. You've got to exercise as well. Don't just sit in your basement. You got to get out there and you got to keep your body healthy as well.
And one last little thing too, man. Like, we're hoping that with this, if we become official and a varsity, esports might actually be the first official co-ed capable team that actually exists, where we have men and women and people of all backgrounds like on our team. And also Microsoft Xbox just put out a controller that folks that are handicapped, that they can actually use
it's like
different inputs and stuff like that. It's
toe capable in case you don't have hands.
No, it's for anybody. Like, it's made for accessibility, and that's what Microsoft Xbox designed it for. And we're hoping that we can represent any gamers that are out there that want to compete on that level.
Man, that's huge that you guys are putting that aspect into it. Oh yeah, that's huge. Well, dude, again, I really appreciate you, and we're going to do this again for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, Nato, appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, bro.